In the middle of tremendous darkness and personal tragedy, false lights are trying to guide us, and they can bring shipwreck. We must be focused on God's pathways and His light in the storms of life. Christ is the light of navigation. Hello and welcome to the Light of Navigation and the God Stories. My name is Marguerite Lever-Woodall, and I'm an author, speaker, and your host. I write short stories about real-life, supernatural encounters with God, and I love to explore what it is, what it means to follow God's pathways. In this 6th episode of the God Stories, called God in the Arms of Communion, I'll share with you a powerful story of a moment when someone is allowed to see beyond Earth's veil. Come, join me in the adventures of the God Stories and experience the encounters with the goodness of God, even in the middle of our life storms. I sat in the chair in the church sanctuary, just staring at the Christmas tree display that night. Its height almost touched the ceiling. I was here, but far away in my thoughts. I found myself getting ready for the annual communion to be taken with my pastor and his wife. It had been our pastor's tradition to do this with each individual family, single person or persons on Christmas Eve in the church sanctuary. As we sat there was a minute or two of remembrance of what Christmas was really all about. In the past, there had been prophetic words or insights for some that would occur usually before or sometimes after sharing in the bread and wine. My 34-year-old nephew had insisted on taking communion with me this night. He sat quietly next to me in the low-lit sanctuary, holding his portion of the bread and wine. As a struggling addict himself, he was reaching out to me in my darkest hour. He was still in disbelief that he had not died first because of his long-standing addiction, but my son Randall had instead. He had passed 2 months before from an overdose. I appreciated his gesture of comfort and support, and I knew his heart was breaking for me. When we were done taking the bread and wine together, and after listening to the pastor's comments, John turned to me as we walked away to leave and said, "Auntie, I saw a second pair of arms and hands that were running parallel on either side of mine. There was the bread and the wine in each hand as well. The arms and hands were taking communion too." I understood in that moment that he had seen something spiritually. A glimpse beyond the veil and the unseen was allowed to be seen briefly. He had not expected this, and it took him by surprise. I felt he might have been unsettled by what he saw at the time. In an effort to reassure him, I said, "John, it must have been the arms of Christ taking communion with you that you saw." This was, of course, my first probable explanation, but he firmly, resolutely replied, No, Auntie. They were Randall's." It occurs to me now, sometime later, that my son was also in those moments taking communion with me. Thank you for taking time to listen once again. If this podcast can encourage someone you know who wonders what's going on beyond the veil, pass it on. Your comments are valued, and subscribing would also be appreciated. What do you do when someone approaches you and becomes a powerful spokesman for the living God? In the next episode of the God Stories called God and the Keep On Keepin' On, you'll discover how powerful words, prompted by God, can be physically and emotionally life-giving and supernaturally turn things around.